1. Government underpinnings. Topic 1. The comparative method. Purpose of comparing government. The reason why you study comparative government isn't to learn about the political systems of other countries and not use them for anything specific. The purpose of comparing governments is to contrast the similarities and differences on public policy and how governments answer societal problems. So the first important aspect of comparing governments is to be able to identify problems. Like, what kind of problems does Nigeria have? What kind of problems does Mexico have? Russia? What has the United Kingdom done to correct problems that maybe Mexico has dealt with? What has China done to correct the problems that maybe Iran is dealing with? Okay, so you evaluate and understand how countries attempt to solve the problems. And then through studying how countries have solved the problems, you recommend the best solution to the problems based on other countries' results. So if Mexico was going to be really good at suppressing drug cartel violence, if drug cartel violence were to become a problem in, say, Russia, then Russia could look to see how Mexico identified the problem and what policies they put into place in order to eradicate drug cartels. The US is pretty awesome, but we don't have all the answers, so it is important to see how other countries have dealt with certain problems and made their society better. Okay. Statements. We all make statements. Now, there are two types of statements that you can make. First are empirical. We're going to try to focus on the empirical statements, where you are simply making a factual statement based on measurable data. Like, what is it? What happened? So if you were to look at this map up here, an empirical statement would be, it seems that Western democracies have higher GDPs. It seems that the Sahel region of Africa has lower GDPs. Okay, so the United States has a GDP per person or per capita of $54,000 a year. Okay, that's what we want to focus on, stating the facts. Another kind of statement, or normative, and this is when we place a value or an opinion on a fact. So you could say, a normative statement would be, if you have a democracy, the democracies are going to have the best economies. So if you want to have a good economy like you see in the United States or Western Europe, it's best if you have a democracy. See, that's a norm. You're putting a value or an opinion or a judgment on that statement. So that would be like, African nations should look at European economic development strategies. Okay, that's the should. With social science, I do want you to consider this class to be a science class for this particular reason. In this class, we're going to present hypothesis, and you're going to gather the data, and you're going to test the hypothesis, just like you would in biology or in physics. When you're talking about proving a hypothesis or testing it, you need to know the difference between correlations and causations. So a correlation is one set of facts relates to another. So an example of this would be, countries with high poverty rates have low literacy rates and low levels of political participation. So they relate to one another, but you're not, again, making a normative statement about anything to do with poverty or literacy. You're just noticing that there's a relationship. Causation is a little bit harder to prove. Causation, you have to prove that one set of facts or data is caused by another. So like eating too much junk food causes you to be overweight. But wait, that's a pun, see, because I just said something about being overweight, but wait. Okay, a lot of high schoolers are skinny and you eat junk. So it's really hard to prove that eating too much junk actually causes you to be overweight. So that's a very difficult causation. So we're again going to focus on correlations. Okay, so it's hard to prove. You don't make a statement until you've proved the correlation is actually the cause. In this class, we're going to focus on the structural and rational choice approaches. We're going to gather information and statistics in order to construct broad theories on human behavior. We cannot really use the cultural anthropology approach because we don't have the opportunity to visit or live with the people and the governments that we're studying. All right, the last thing I want to go over is the definition of political systems. Okay, so a political system, before we start talking about the different types, is a complex organization of the people and the government that make the laws that keep people safe and provide services to people. Okay, so a political system operates in a very specific environment. So if you look at this chart, here's the environment in which a political system operates. These are all of the norms and historical traditions of the country, their political culture of the country. So in the United States, our environment is patriotism. Our environment is embracing different types of people and different types of culture. Our environment is equal opportunity. Our environment is democracy and participation in the system. Okay, inputs. Okay, the inputs are the requests or demands of the people. So we are the inputs. When we call up a senator and say, we want you to propose a law that increases government funding for higher education, so tuition will be decreased for people who are going broke with student loans. Okay, so we are the demands. We're the demands on the system. We want and request policy changes. Then you have linkage institutions. These are outside of the political system. These are political parties, interest groups, media. You have state institutions. They're inside this formal political system. They're the branches of government, the legislative Congress, the executive president, and our judicial system. And the outputs right here are the laws and services created to address the demands of society. So the linkage and state institutions work within our political culture. So, for example, media, part of our political culture is freedom of press. The media operates with the knowledge that it can criticize, that it can criticize the government without worrying about any repercussions, like getting thrown into jail. Political parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. All right, we have a long history of two-party system. So they operate inside of this political system as two parties. The legislative branch, Congress, they're going to, of course, keep in mind what it is that the American people value. Do the American people value equal opportunity, that hard work will get you far? Of course. So Congress thinks about that before they pass any laws about taxing the wealthy. Okay, so this is just an intro. If you need to replay it, please feel free to. If I couldn't properly edit the beginning, I apologize for that. Thank you for your time.